Hey, Bill, good morning.
Live from Washington. Is that where you are now?
No, actually, right now I'm on looking at the ocean in Myrtle Beach. I'm here with half of the Mohawk Valley, I'm sure.
Right. Well, not this week. This isn't spring break week for us yet.
Oh, it's not? When is spring break week there?
Spring
Not
break
soon
week,
enough.
we put it off until June this year. It is in it is actually in 3 weeks.
Oh, really? Okay.
Spring break week
21st, the week of the 23rd.
Making a programming note here because I do plan on taking it off this year. Spring break, it is the 23rd through the 27th.
Well, I'm here with my in-laws from Montgomery County, and they have this week off. So
they do, yeah. I
county
think
by county, or?
Herkimer County and Oneida County tend to work together with the coordination of BOCES, and that's when theirs are. The thought is to dissuade people from going south, so that when you do, if it's late April, you're going to go south, and everybody at home is going to be like, I don't know, it's 78 here and sunny. What are you spending all this money for?
Right.
But I'm not sure that's going to happen, Ryan. The weather is just brutal up here.
And it's nice here, 79 today, so can't complain.
Best time to go to Myrtle Beach. Okay, and down there are a couple of places, Utica people. There's one Italian restaurant down there where the guy is from Utica, and the food is just, it's Utica Italian food. It's awesome.
You run into Utica people everywhere down here.
You really do, yeah. All right, Ryan. And by the way, Ryan, on CNN, I ran into it would have been your uncle-in-law, I believe. They live close to us, who said, I hope you know, Ryan, and it's Dave, right? Ryan is...
I think it's Danny.
Danny,
yeah.
Ryan is on, he's at the anchor desk this weekend.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you have promoters all over, Ryan Nobles.
Yes, I do. Yes, I have them planted in strategic places.
Strategic
to make sure
places.
People know when I'm on. Yes,
like right on my street. It's I don't know how you're doing it. All right, where do we want to begin here? What do you think about the leak that's come by way of the attorneys of the president? The leak that says Mueller has informed them he is investigating the president, but it is not criminal.
Well, I do think it's significant, and I think that this is one of those things. So, if you're a supporter of the president, you can find some hope, and if you're a detractor of the president, you can also find some hope. I think that this isn't. I think this is the natural course of the investigation. They are definitely looking into the president and his ties to possible collusion in Russia, but they, at least at this point, Mueller doesn't seem to think that maybe the president himself is principally responsible for it.
Right.
That doesn't mean, as the investigation unfolds, that he can't become a criminal target. It just means, as the cards are laid out on the table right now, Mueller doesn't seem to see a connection directly to the president. But this could also be a negotiating tactic for Robert Mueller. He may be saying, listen, I'm not looking at you as the guy that's responsible for this, so come on in and talk to me about it. Clear your name completely, and then the president gets himself into trouble in part of that interview. So, I do think that the fact that he is not directly the man he's going after right now is potentially a good sign for the president, but it doesn't necessarily mean that he's completely, out of the woods here. Totally.
All right. And then if we can get into the president tweeting out that we are not in the midst of a trade war. There was a fear that any of these tariffs would cause issues, and China has kind of pushed back. What's the talk up on Capitol Hill?
I mean, this is exactly what experts expected was going to happen when the president laid down these heavy tariffs on steel, and then he started with other goods as well, specifically targeting China. There's no way that China, a country of more than 1 billion people with an enormous amount of buying power, one of the number one shippers of manufacturing goods into the United States, was just going to take this lying down. It's such a huge part of their economy. And, China is willing to take on that fight. They have the capacity to do it, and I think that they're willing if it gets into a staring contest with Donald Trump, I don't think that Xi Jinping is gonna blink anytime soon. So This is probably just the beginning of this. In the past, this isn't the first time we've tried this, particularly with steel tariffs. They attempted it in the Bush administration, George W. Bush, and it didn't last very long. I think 18 months, and they decided this doesn't make any sense. So, I think this is just the beginning of this. We'll have to see. What's interesting about this bill is what the president what his number one thing that he pointed to the first year of his administration is his success of making America great again was the stock market. And this series of policy rollouts that he's had in the beginning of the year have sent the stock market in the opposite direction. So, how long he's going to allow that to continue, we're going to have to see.
How about what about the word that came out on DACA? The president had really led Democrats to believe that something would be done, and now tweeting out the deal's done, and we're going to put the military on the border. This is the move the president has made in the last 24 hours.
I mean, it's so hard to try and decipher exactly what his goal is with DACA. When he complains about the fact that DACA is in limbo, there's only one person responsible for DACA being in limbo, and that's him. He could have just kept the program in place and worked out a negotiating deal to codify it in law with Democrats and Republicans on the Hill. But instead, he decided to rescind it right away, essentially set this arbitrary deadline that, backed everyone else into a corner. And now he's in a position where, the Democrats, there's no political motivation for them to deal with him in any way, shape, or form. They're just kind of running out the clock until the fall elections.
Yeah.
And, it's just not a priority for Mitch McConnell and Paul Ryan. They don't feel the same sense of urgency when it comes to these major immigration issues like building a wall and getting rid of DACA and doing all these things that the president does. Their base of support feels about these issues differently. Mitch McConnell's way more concerned about confirming judges, and he was way more concerned about tax reform than he is about some sort of massive immigration overhaul. So when he doesn't have the will in the Congress, the president can whine about it all he wants on his Twitter feed, but what he's got to do is get these guys into a room and say, how are we going to figure this out?
Yeah.
And at this point, he just seems content with just, kind of yelling about it on social media.
And of course, calling the president. I thought this was interesting as Jimmy Kimmel did a part of his monologue last night about the fact that isn't it just kind of odd that on the same day that the president's attorneys are trying to basically cut a deal over Stormy Daniels, which is a cheating issue, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
He's calling President Obama cheating Obama. I find that to be kind of
cheating, Bill.
Cheating
Put the
Obama.
G on it.
Kind of find that interesting.
Yeah. There's no doubt that he projects. That's one of the president's. I mean, the fact that he called Ted Cruz "lying Ted" when there's this numerous examples of the false statements that come out of Donald Trump's mouth. There's no doubt that there's a distraction game that the president likes to play. This is another example of that. Yeah. He can't just will away the Stormy Daniels issue and try and put the focus on other people. These are his problems that he's got to deal with.
Yeah.
And at some point he's going to have to confront them.
Speaking of Stormy Daniels, what are the people at Barefoot Landing saying about Stormy Daniels?
Is she going to be down here? Has she been here before?
I imagine she's been looking at the koi fish as she's walked across
Ryan
the.
Was very excited. When
he knows
heard that.
exactly. He knows what we're talking about here. An iconic spot in Myrtle Beach.
So, Ryan, on Stormy, did you want to respond to that?
Is that Stormy Daniels feeding the carp?
I've never heard of this place. I take my children to Barefoot Landing. Thank you.
Yes, Barefoot Landing is it's a very, very cool place, and it's not. There are no strip clubs there.
So,
but you could run across a stripper feeding the koi fish or the carp. It could happen.
Yes, I guess you could.
Yeah.
Yes, you could.
So,
Ryan, it's not out of the realm of possibility.
No, it's not.
The latest on Stormy is this arbitration. Here's what I don't understand. She was paid $130,000. We can get into the signature thing. She ended up giving the money back, right? Apparently, went and did the interview.
She tried to, yeah.
Revealed all this information. Arbitration for what? We already know what she has to say. I don't understand what's the next step here.
Well, there's so much of the back and forth about whether or not this really happened, it didn't happen, whether or not there's a legal problem. They had a contract, right? The contract said, you shut up about this. You talk about it, you got to pay us $1 million for every time you say it.
Yeah.
So I think that,
I didn't know that angle of it.
Yeah. So
I thought it was just give the money back. She's got to pay $1 million every time.
That was a big part of this
contract
story last week.
I didn't catch that part.
Every time she talks about it, and, Michael Cohen's lawyer has claimed that, they've racked up, $20 million supposedly in charges about this. So what Avenatti, her lawyer, is saying is that they've breached the contract in other areas. The contract wasn't put together correctly, on and on and on, so she can talk freely.
Right.
And so what the arbitration essentially would do is that they'd come together and say, okay, what's the settlement deal here?
Yeah.
Are we gonna get out of this deal?
Okay.
Are you just going to pay us back the $130,000 and we'll call it even? Are you going to owe us, what deal they're going to reach? I mean, there's really no motivation for Stormy Daniels to come to a conclusion here, because the more that this stays in the headlines, the better it is for her. It's Trump people that want to see the conversation end.
Yeah. Crazy story. Really just a crazy story. And there's no keeping quiet anymore, being paid to keep quiet. Everybody always seems to come forward. Tiger Woods is dealing with that right now with an ex-girlfriend. Crazy. Okay, Ryan, I do want to say Mets off to a really good start. Harvey looked really good yesterday. Tiger Woods is back playing. This is really quite exciting.
I feel really good about the Mets, Bill. There were a couple of things. At the beginning, you don't want to get too drunk on the first week of the season, but there were a couple of things about them that I was looking for. Obviously Syndergaard and DeGrom look great. Matt's shaky, but if Harvey can have even like a 12-win season, that could be the difference between the playoffs and not. And the other thing I really like about him, there seems to be energy in the clubhouse. Todd Frazier, the third baseman, seems to be a great addition. He had a big hit last night. I feel really good about the Mets, but I think the Nationals are going to be really good. So, it's going to be a long slog for sure. But, and the other thing, too, is I thought the Phillies were going to be good. I think their new manager is overthinking everything, and I don't think maybe they're going to be the concern that we thought they were.
Mets play this afternoon. By the way, the game is on Facebook Live today.
Yeah.
Ryan, thanks so much. We appreciate it.
Thanks, guys. Have a great one.